Hey everybody, welcome to more Jawin and Drawin. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. Today we got some fun stuff planned, but first I want to show off a few things I've been working on. The first one here is I'm once again collaborating with Kurt Bruegel of CROM the Barbarian fame, cromthebarbarian.com. You can get the collected and revised edition from him. I did this variant cover. You flip it open and you see him holding Goliath's head here. But there's 5 variant covers. This is the last week until the 31st that you can get it from him. But it contains stories that he's written and drawn himself, that he's kind of remastered. They're originally done in ballpoint pen, but he went over those old drawings with his new inking technique and it looks beautiful. The stories are great. Covers youthful CROM. Then there's reprints of classic Barbarian comics, as well as some prose that I believe he, it's Gardner F. Fox, but he adapted to be about CROM the Barbarian. You can see where I left off reading it here. But all complete with illustrations. Kurt went all out on this and got some really great artists to help him with variant covers. You got David Molina, you got Drawn Sword, you got Ken Landgraf, legendary Ken Landgraf, Adam Dodds, and myself. So if you haven't, go to cromthebarbarian.com, grab a copy of this. It's only like 13 bucks, 14 bucks, I think. Well worth it. Magazine sized. And there's lots of just great escapist barbarian comics and prose in here. But the first thing I wanted to show off here is I'm once again collaborating with him. He's going to be putting out a CROM anthology, which will just be kind of collecting original stories about CROM the Barbarian. I'm doing one called, right now it's called Cromdahar, and it's loosely based on the story about the giant of Kandahar encountered by the Marines in the early 2000s or whatever. It's a really fun story. Look it up. But these are the pencils for it. I will be doing pencils and layouts, and Kurt will be inking them. I also think it might be fun because I really do want to ink this myself. I might go back when I'm all done and ink some of these pages and maybe get Kurt's ink and put out my own book of just our, same story, different inkers, just to show like kind of a different feel that, something like that can have if you change up the roster there a little bit. I think I might also beef these guys up a little bit, make them look a lot more intimidating, just bigger, broader shoulders, bring him closer to here, bring him lower, bigger, broader shoulders. Yeah, that might be the way to do it, because I got a lot of negative space here that's not really doing much for me. I might have him grabbing his hand, and that's the reason why the tape recorder drops. But that's neither here nor there. I'm sure I will be working on this at some point in a Drawin' and Jawing. I'm also still working on this one. I did a little bit of work on it yesterday. Kind of got a little bit lost here, but we're hoping we'll fill out the rest and we'll see what happens. If you're into my portrait work, I do have a zine of my pen and ink portraits that you can purchase from me for $5. Just a collection of some of my, I curated what I think are some of my better portrait work, pen and ink, a lot of fountain pen, a lot of good stuff in here. But there's that'll make a return at some point. I also recently finished another page of Gut and Ghost. So that is coming back, and if you haven't gotten a copy of my comic Gut and Ghost just yet, please do so. Buddy comedy about a pile of guts and a ghost. Their light goes out. How do they get it to turn back on? And the misadventures and non sequiturs all along the way. So, and I'm sure I will be probably drawing or inking a panel of this at some point in the future on the channel. And then lastly, we get into what I'm working on today. This is page 1 of The Dark Mac Tonight Returns. I have a video of me, I think, doing some of the watercolors on here, maybe some of the inking. I forget what it is, but there's a video up of it a couple of videos ago. This is page 1. Basically, I am taking the classic Frank Miller story, The Dark Knight Returns, and adapting it to be about fast food and McDonald's and just taking it a page at a time and riffing on it while I'm redrawing it and seeing how far I can take that. And today I'm working on page 2 of that. You can see here we'll show the example here, a little side by side. Here's page 1 again, so if you'd like to see, get a little side by side of the two. Lots of fun. And then here's page 2. Hopefully that's all in frame. I believe it is. But yeah, we'll be working on this today. I'm going to be putting some ink on here. If you are interested, I do have page 1 available as a black and white fold-out zine. So you get kind of these big-sized panels. Kind of treat them as pages. You get to the end, unfold and flip over. So you just kind of, you know, find the middle of it. And then this is where, see, I unfolded it strange here. This is where it's going to look like a magic trick. But generally, just kind of grab the ends of it and you can kind of pull it apart. Okay? Fold it over so that the outside is now the inside. Grab it by the middle, pull it apart, and look at that. You got the rest of page 1 of The Dark Mac Tonight Returns. And you can get this free with any of the books, including my After Frank Miller fanzine, just redrawn, not redrawn, but putting a bunch of characters in the Dark Knight triumphant pose. You know, lots of fun. But all those, you can find the links in the description there if you would like to get a copy. All of them come with a free copy of page 1 of the Dark Mac Tonight Returns fold-out zine. And then, yeah, on with the show. Let's get to drawing here. So I inked that first page here mostly with this brush, and I really like how it turned out. I'm going to keep doing that. But I'm also going to probably be going back and forth with this thicker brush. It's just kind of a brush. I think it's like just a watercolor brush you can get at like Michael's or whatever. I almost said McDonald's. Got my coffee here too. So I'll be alternating between those two, and then as well I'm going to probably tackle the cityscape in a dip pen. It just looks like in the comic book there, in the source material, he's got much darker, not darker, but sharper. That's the term I was looking for. Much sharper lines. So yeah, we'll just kind of start off inking this silhouette here in the background. So let's get our ink, our little ink well. And my little stopper on the inkwell is clogged on this one for some reason. So we're pouring it very carefully. All right. A little dip of water. Make sure we're nice and viscous. A little tester paper here. Always have a tester paper. Okay. I'm good to go. What I really like about these buildings, I remember this striking me when I first read this story, is just like these kind of weird abstract shapes, very blocky, but like these, but also like really gestural too. There's all these like weird things jutting out of them, very asymmetrical. And then in the book, what is it? It's the Gotham Twin Towers, I think they refer to it as. And in the book, I believe it's Two-Face. It's involved in some sort. Two-Face uses it in some sort of heist at some point in the book when he comes back. So that asymmetricalness of the Twin Towers is seems to work thematically too. It's one of those things where it's like it very much the way Frank Miller draws. It just seems like very. I get the feeling he draws pretty fast. So I wonder how much of that is just a result of him. You know, I'm sure it's a very meticulously planned book, it seems like. So I'm sure that's something he factored into that. He probably did so many different drawings of what the silhouettes of these buildings look like, because he keeps coming back to that imagery in the book. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of like what I like about him. camera set up in the correct position today. I don't know if people like this view or they would prefer a more close-up view, but then I have to move the camera every so often. Oh, let me know what you prefer in the comments. So I can switch to a different tripod that's a little bit closer to the work area here. I don't know if my constantly leaning over into the frame here is ruining your experience of the video. It could be though, and if it is, please let me know. I could always experiment with that other tripod. There we go. Yep. So what else is going on? Yesterday, earlier this week, I got a desk off of Facebook Marketplace, and for my daughter, doing it for my daughter. But I got it for her, and then I sanded it yesterday. So it had, you know, some like crayons and stuff on it. It's a nice desk, but it was definitely nice and well loved and used. So, but I sanded it, and then this morning I stained it, and then tomorrow I will seal it. That's what I did today. Got dinner on the grill. Doing some pulled pork tonight. That'll be delicious. I'm looking forward to that. I love the lines that this brush does. It's a little bit frayed now, so I gotta be careful with it, but love the variation in line it gives me. I probably should have my reference material over here too, so I can kind of spend a long time drawing the city. Which I can just kind of put that right there. That'll work perfectly. What kind of coffee do y'all drink? You guys like coffee? You like tea? What's your drink, you know? I like a nice coffee. My brother got me really into doing pour-overs. I kind of was doing those already because we don't drink a lot of coffee in the house. I'm the only coffee drinker, so I don't need to make a lot of coffee, but it's nice to just kind of make a fresh cup when I want one. You gotta have that be the limit rather than like make a pot and have it sit on all day, and yeah, just make what you need. And then there's a whole process to that. My brother clued me into that. He has a whole method he learned from some friends who own a coffee shop in Boulder, Colorado. Verb Coffee, they make delicious coffee. Shout out Verb Coffee. Go buy some coffee from them. But yeah, they got like a whole pour over method. They showed them how to do it. You got to keep your beds nice and flat. Your coffee grounds, like a bed of coffee grounds. There's a way you got to pour it. There's a specific amount of coffee you got to put in there. There's a whole thing, but I'll tell you what, man, once you do it a few times, it's kind of really satisfying to follow the method. You don't want to not follow it ever again, you know? All right, so we've jumped over there and filled that out a little bit. Let's jump back over here and start filling out the city a little more. We want to keep this nice and clean. So one of the things as I was drawing this that I was thinking about is like, would this look interesting as a fold-out zine? Because one of the things about this book is that Frank Miller's kind of always using this like 12, 16 panel like grid, like 4 by 4 or whatever. So the first page worked pretty well for that folding zine, but this one, it's still using that grid, but it's also like opening it up a little bit. So I gridded it out when I drew it, you know, dividing like I would if I were drawing 4 by 4 panels, because it kind of sets up your composition for the whole page, you know. And it's really interesting to see how he kind of sticks with that layout, but like opens up this kind of window, and just allows the drawing to breathe. And it makes, and you know, again, it's a scene change. It makes sense for what the page is trying to do. We're getting a wide shot of Gotham City. So it's just a really, really good choice. And it's one of those things where it's like he very quickly and early on establishes a formula for that kind of visual language, or the way he's presenting these individual scenes, to where it's almost like especially with the amount of faces and like the repetition of faces and stuff like that, like it can get pretty, I don't know, like abstract, I guess, because you're just having to go by like changes in facial expressions and dialogue, which, you know, Dark Knight Returns is like, if I had one criticism, it is a wordy comic, but it is a good read, you know. So it's like kind of one of the tightrope balancing acts that it does. And I think it also, not only is it wordy, but then it like fulfills on like some of the bigger action set pieces. And especially with Frank Miller's art and Lynn Varley's colors, I mean, it's got this like kind of gnarled kind of, it's like nothing you've ever seen before, or at least prior to that, I guess. But I don't know, it's just a very well thought out. Ooh, did I? Oh, I'm leaking. Good thing I noticed that now. All right, let's pause and get a napkin, and then maybe put this cup inside of another cup here. Actually, I don't need to pause. I'll just put that cup in there. And I got some napkins right here. Do not want to accidentally get a bunch of ink on my drawing. That would be, especially in front of all you fine, lovely people, that would be very embarrassing. So I'm glad I noticed that. Very well done. Very well done. Take another sip of coffee while we're at it. So, yeah, I don't know what I was saying there. But just the way he grids it out, and he sticks to that pretty much throughout the entirety of the book. And well, maybe not the entirety. I'm gonna have to go back and reread it at some point. It's been a year. But I mean, for a lot of it, it does. And when it goes away from it, it does, if I remember correctly, return to that kind of formula. But again, this is one of those things, like I've read this book so many times and I'm having a hard time recollecting exactly. So I guess like one of the points of like kind of redrawing this is like investigating what about it in this book appeals to me on an artistic level. as far as the way it delivers the information that it's trying to deliver. I think also from a comic book making level, it's a fun exploration of like trying to figure out how this works, because I'll be honest with you, I don't really have that much of a clue. I'm just kind of guessing whenever I say these things. I just kind of make it up. So don't ever ask me for my source, because it will always be I made it up. You know, can't have fun anymore. I can't just make things up and speculate. Everything's got to be cited. But not me, brother. This is how I cite things. I explore them in some abstract way and just kind of shoot off at the mouth. Maybe not in an abstract way. Just kind of like, you know, stuff like this. It's, you just explore it and shoot off at the mouth. It's your findings, you know? And I know I'm not the first to do something like this. I think there was a project a bunch of artists were on called Shitty Dark Knight, where they each got like a page and had to redraw it, you know, in so many hours or whatever, maybe 24, probably less. So it's, you know, there's a precedent for doing something like this. Sure, maybe I could have picked something other than The Dark Knight Returns, you know. Been a little bit more original in that regard, but I don't know. Kind of made sense with what do you call it? The stream of conscious way I went about it, as far as like what I was working on. That kind of led me to this. So, and I'm having fun, so. And it's not just a straight redraw. We're readapting, repurposing, retooling. Because, I mean, face it, Batman's basically McDonald's at this point, right? Like, all the superhero shit is just fast food at this point, right? Like, we had our time where it's like, oh, no, these are the modern myths of our time. Oh. And we had to pretend like it was important when, you know, the Marvel movies were, like, better than mediocre. And, like, we were waiting for The Dark Knight Rises or whatever. And then, you know. But I think it's over now, right? We could pretend that they're just silly. And at this point, they're just, they're fast food. They're IP. You know, it's lowest common denominator, meant to appeal to as many people as possible. And if that one doesn't fit your niche, well, by gum, do we have one in our roster that will? And if we don't, well, why make a new one when we can just change an old one? You know? I'm not complaining about that sort of thing. You know, sometimes these old ideas that sit around for so long, it helps to have someone give it a fresh take. But how many times can you really do that with something like Batman or Superman? Especially Superman. Superman seems to have the hardest time of like finding like anything, because he's like, I guess that character, if you're gonna make the argument of like, oh, he's an important mythological, like Western mythological figure, that'd probably be it. Because he was like very much based on those like Nietzschean ideas that were like really big at the time, and I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But there's like, I can understand why Superman hasn't really changed. And when there are changes, like, it's generally not, people generally don't like it, you know? I guess about the only thing you could change about Superman is like the people around him. Like, what if Superman like outlived Lois Lane and Jimmy, all his buds, you know, all his super pals. I'm sure there's been a comic about that. That seems like a pretty obvious idea. But like, you know, maybe he ages slower because he's Superman. It seems like a thing that would happen if you were Superman. You would probably age a little bit slower than everybody else. And then you'd have to watch all your human friends die, not just your parents, because, you know, do his parents die, or is there some comics where his parents are dead and they're not, some comics where he can go back to Kansas and his parents are not dead? I don't know. But, I don't know, it just makes sense to me, but I'm sure that's been done. But, yeah, Superman's not really one that seems to take too well to a lot of changes. Although I guess, like, they added the flying thing over the years. That wasn't like a... You know, he didn't come with all the powers that we all know and love about Superman these days. Probably not the supporting casting, Chris. So these are things that, like, again, like, you know, Siegel and Schuster had their idea, and I'm sure Fleischer added something, and I'm sure, you know. So they get updated, but, like, again, it's not necessarily to be culturally relevant or whatever. It's just, oh, this would be a cool idea. Like, let's try to make this and then stick with that for a little bit. I don't know. But, you know, how many different takes of Batman can you do? I mean, I guess now we're getting one, the absolute Batman, where he's going to be like a poorer guy, but he's also like, you know, 7 foot tall and buff, and he's just like a monster, like an absolute monster. And what was it? People are complaining about his bat symbol. I don't think a bat symbol looks bad or anything. I just think the axe idea is stupid. It just seems a bridge too far. I like the cape being a weapon. I like the ears being batarangs, but, like, I don't know. Why can't the bat symbol just, like, be a shield or something? Or maybe it's does like a really bright light or something. I don't know. Like, you can make it utilitarian, but I gotta pull it off and take this pole out of, where does he keep the pole? I don't know. Is it the bat pole? But I don't know. I'm gonna get it. I'll read it. You know, I'm not reading a lot of those, like a lot of Batman comics these days, but I'll check that out. It's something slightly different. I like Nick Dragata's art. Dragata, however you say it. I like his art a lot. He's got like a real kind of manga bend, especially in black and white. His art looks great in black and white. I really liked his little mini series, Ghost Cage. It was a lot of fun. Interesting idea, action-packed, very stylish, and it's like, you know, from somebody who's like a writer-artist, it's like kind of exactly what you would want. Really well paced, gets in, gets out. I think it's only like 4 issues or something like that. But it's like all action, man. It's great. And the artwork is very, very fun to look at. I like it a lot. It kind of reminds me of that, he's got kind of a similar thing to James Herron, who does Ultra Mega. You know, like, he's like kind of really, like, especially in Ghost Cage, like Nick Dragata's like drawn this one character, these like really spindly kind of arms, but they're like muscular, and I don't know, he's just doing some like really fun figure drawing stuff, getting real crazy with it, and I really like stuff like that. It gets off the walls, but it's never too divorced from some sort of structure, you know. But I like the way he draws, so I'll be checking out that book. And I did enjoy Scott Snyder's New 52 Batman run and his Detective Comics run before that. And I kind of fell off when, what was it, when Gordon became he had like a mech bat suit. That was a little strange. So I kind of fell off with that. But up until that point, it was a pretty fun read. I looked forward to that book every month. I tell you, I like doing the smoke in this brush, man. This brush is so fun. It's also a new week. I got a new song stuck in my head. I was showing my kids Michael Jackson. The new thing we're trying to do now is trying to get them off of the... Well, we're always trying to limit screen time, but one of the things I'm trying to do now to kind of limit the screen time and get them active is like, we're having a dance party. The baby loves it, usually, unless she's like throwing a fit. She's deep into a fit. We're not doing it. But sometimes our big kid likes it too, but sometimes she's being grumpy. But I was showing them Michael Jackson last week, and I got So Baby Be Mine. That's a good song. That whole album's really good. Thriller's an incredible album. I'm not saying anything new. I guess since we're kind of nerd adjacent here and we're talking about Michael Jackson, we could start talking about the Michael Jackson Sonic 3 soundtrack. Ooh, there's some odd similarities there. Odd similarities between some Michael Jackson songs and some songs from Sonic 3. But yeah, I got that one stuck in my head. What songs are stuck in your guys' head this week? What are you bopping to, or whatever the kids say these days? Yeah, that'll be... Using the brush on the smoke's a good idea. That'll be a good contrast with the pen on the buildings, I think. Have a much thinner line on the building, so it'll be a little bit more exact, I guess, less expressive, I suppose is the there we go, looks pretty good. So one of the things I'm also hoping to learn from doing this is, creating more of a shorthand in the way that I draw. I tend to, again, like I did that Gut and Ghost page, and I'm happy with it. It's fine, but I got too lost in the weeds with like hatching. I got to get away from that. And I'm wondering if maybe limiting the amount of tools I use, or just again, like the repetition of looking at something else and being like, okay, how did he do this? Let me try to do that. A similar thing. You know, stuff like that.
Let's finish filling in the rest of these buildings back here. This side probably should have worked left to right, but that's okay. I'll just be conscious of the mostly freshly laid ink. There we go. Might do that in I do watercolors for the colors. I might do this in actual acrylic ink. Might be a little bit brighter. I wonder if I should do a yellow wash behind it. Maybe we'll experiment when we get to there. We'll give it a shot on a separate piece of paper, see what that looks like with the yellow wash. one's kind of on the cutoff margin too, so it doesn't really matter that much. And if it ever goes to any sort of printed book, nobody would see that. Although I guess it's not an excuse, because if people see the 11 by 17, I should probably not be careless. You know, I should take care. It's always good to take care. Always fail to take care. So when we get into the pen, or the dip pen, we'll take a closer look at this area and leave it open enough to where we could still do something with it. And I think we might be ready for the pen now. Let's let that leak. Unless, do we want to, let's, I guess I did drink all the coffee. Yeah, let's continue with the brush, actually. Because what I could start doing is filling all these out. I just go straight up. Yeah, a little wavy. That's all right. Already established that contrast by doing all of our brush work and then go back into the pen. Instead of, because I'll just be going back into the brush anyway, might as well just do the brush. I kind of like the thing where the mist or the smoke interrupts the line on the panel box or the dialogue box, or so I'm going to keep doing that. I kind of like how that looks.
smeared it. Well, bound to happen. That's why we got gesso. Whoops-a-doodle. Left to right. You can definitely ink pretty dang fast with a brush. Kind of like that. All right. Make sure we're still recording here. We are, and we're at about almost an hour. Holy moly. And then this just goes straight off like that. Hit that brush. Yeah, this is, oops, about to put my hand directly on what I just inked. Directly in that line I just made. Don't be messing up my lines. All right, remember the mist interrupts the box.
making some progress. Yeah, this is basically how I do it. Basically, one of the things, other thing I'm hoping that I get out of this project is that I tighten up my pencil work. 'Cause it definitely, I mean, seems obvious, but it seems like the tighter your pencil work, the easier a job you're going to have in inking the thing. And it's also making me reconsider the amount of detail, quote unquote, I have in Gut and Ghost, which, you know, some of it works, some of it doesn't. There's definitely some aspects of that that people point out and tell me they like, so hopefully they're telling me the truth. But I think there's still room to rein it in and find a balance there. So last few days I've been toying with maybe one of the things I established with making more Gut and Ghost is more of a simplicity of how I'm drawing these panels and laying everything out, you know, because it is definitely more of a cartoony kind of comic, so I can get away with some of those more cartoony kind of character models, I suppose you could say. Oh, this will be fun. I forgot I did a spilled bag of groceries here. Hopefully that's one thing I forgot about. Hopefully I didn't use a reference, so hopefully it reads as a spilled bag of groceries in this panel. I used a couple of references just to see pictures of some overturned fruit and stuff. But I think, and then I wanted the overturned groceries to also be covered in grease, so I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do that. Maybe I'll just kind of skip drawing that until I can clarify that a little bit more. We'll just do the figure in the foreground. Usually I cut these at an hour, so I'm going to try to wrap up soonish. I don't want to go too heavy with this brush line here. One of the things I did want to play with in these little teeny tiny figures is what Frank Miller does is I see he kind of reduces the one news reporter, like her body just kind of becomes this shape, like a, what do you call it? A trapezoid. You know, there's not much of it you can see, but the shape of the shoulders, you know. Oh, shoot. Well, we'll clean that up with gesso. It's easy enough to clean. do this other figure in the background separately because I got to pull up my reference image for Michael Keaton in the movie The Founder, where he plays Ray Kroc, a guy who bought McDonald's from the McDonald's brothers and kind of turned the whole thing into the empire it became. Never saw the movie. I'm not much for the corporate biopics, but I guess now I have to watch it out of necessity because there's some dialogue I'd like to fill in that I'm wondering if maybe that movie would help fill in some of the blanks in my toolbox, you know. I mean, I just kind of figure, you know, the more things I have in my brain that I can kind of pull from or associate with as I'm doing, the better. That's kind of the fun and the magic of something like this is you're just kind of making it up as you go along, but you're working from this bigger template, I guess. So I mostly want to wait on inking that because the pencil likeness isn't quite there, I don't think. And I'd like to get that a little bit tighter before I throw some ink on it. We'll finish out this page more or less, and then so it looks like I'm not quite bopping around to different materials or whatever today. Just using the brush. I don't really go in with a solid plan when I make these videos. I just like, what am I working on? What haven't they seen or not seen in a while? You know how it is. And I'll wait on this one. This likeness is a little bit closer. But I thought that'd be a fun thing to try to include in the comic, is there's a movie where Michael Keaton plays Ray Kroc, who's, you know, I guess he's kind of like an important figure in McDonald's. Again, like he's the guy that created the empire that this company became. And I guess he did it through real estate. But it's a fun parallel. You know, Michael Keaton played Batman. Michael Keaton plays Ray Kroc. So I put Ray Kroc in the role of Jim Gordon. You know, part of the old guard, I figure. So it's I don't know, I thought it was a fun little reference, but I'll wait on this, excuse me, likeness too. I shouldn't be burping on camera. Mostly because I just want to make sure. It doesn't work if it doesn't look like him, you know, so I just want to make sure I get it right. Forgot to put the little reflection in her glasses. Do, 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 do.
All right, well, you know what? I said I would go a little further, but I do got some things I got to take care of today. And this is pretty good so far. We'll be doing more of this later. Probably more next time on the channel. But if you don't already, please like, subscribe, please follow. Check out my Instagram, @schoon.art, SCHOON.arts. Buy my books, Gut and Ghost, Lights Out, After Frank Miller, and Facebook. You get a free copy of page 1 of the Dark Tonight Returns fold-out zine. Get yourself a copy of CROM the Barbarian. You got till the 31st to get any of the 5 variant covers. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all today. Everybody have a good one. Thanks for stopping by.